Welcome to my YouTube channel, Secret Affairs Exposed. This is where we uncover the hidden and shocking stories of secret love affairs that were never meant to come to light.
Now, let's dive into today's story. I was running late, not for a dinner date or some office meeting, but for the most important encounter of my life. Meeting my fiancé David's mysterious, reclusive billionaire father. I had one job: be punctual, polished, and perfect, but fate had its own plan. On my walk to the estate, I noticed a frail man sitting on a lonely bench, shivering in the sharp afternoon wind. He looked out of place in the manicured perfection of that town. No designer coat, no shiny shoes, just tired eyes, paper layers, and cracked hands. My fiancé's voice echoed in my head. Don't be late. He hates it. He'll judge everything. And still, I stopped. I handed the man my sandwich. It's not much, but it's yours. He smiled softly. Thank you, miss. That's very kind. Then I pulled off the cashmere scarf David had insisted I wear and gently wrapped it around his shoulders. And this? You need it more than I do. The man stared at me with sharp, knowing blue eyes. You are a kind soul. I left him there, my heart pounding with panic. I was now 20 minutes late. I ran down that pristine road like a criminal. By the time I reached the massive gates of the Sterling estate, I was sweaty, breathless, and scarf-less. David stood waiting at the top of the stairs, fuming. You're late, he hissed. 17 minutes. Where's your scarf? What the hell happened? I tried to explain. There was this old man. He was cold, hungry. You gave away the scarf I bought you. Ava, that scarf cost $700. You look like a mess. He didn't care why, just that I wasn't perfect. Inside, the mansion was intimidating. Grand halls, cold silence, and a butler who led us into a vast dining room. At the far end of a table long enough to host royalty, sat a man. One man, alone. My breath caught. I knew that face, that scarf. The homeless man was sitting at the head of the table. David didn't recognize him at first. Father, he said, stunned. What are you wearing? But the man didn't even look at him. His piercing blue eyes were fixed on me. And he smiled the same warm smile he gave me on the park bench. Welcome, Ava, he said. Please, come. In the room spun. This wasn't just any man. This was Arthur Sterling, the myth, the shadow, the billionaire ghost of Wall Street. And I had just handed him my only food and scarf without knowing who he was. David stood frozen. His panic turned into confusion, then horror. That was you. Arthur finally turned to his son. Yes, that was me. You look surprised. His voice was sharp now. But you shouldn't be. I value one thing above all else: kindness when no one's watching. And your fiancé passed that test brilliantly. David shrank beside me. His father's words weren't just for praise, they were an indictment. You warned her not to be late. Not to speak her mind, not to be herself, Arthur said. You gave her rules. I gave her a choice. And she chose compassion. We sat at the long table, but Arthur ignored his son. Every word, every question, every smile was for me. He asked about my work. I told him about my nonprofit job, about mentoring underprivileged kids, about community gardens. He listened like every word mattered. David, who once told me to hide these parts of me, sat silent, ashamed. Arthur's gaze softened. They told me you were a nobody. But I see everything I respect in you. As the dinner continued, Arthur and I shared stories. We spoke about books, purpose, values, things David never bothered to ask me about. For the first time, I felt seen, truly seen. Halfway through the meal, Arthur removed the scarf from his shoulders and handed it back to me. It kept me warm. He said, thank you. I held it in my hands like a medal. David hadn't spoken for nearly 20 minutes. Arthur finally addressed him, sharp and cold. Your place in this family, in my company, rests not on your accomplishments, but on your choice to stand beside this woman. She's your greatest asset if you have the wisdom to realize it. David looked like he might cry. Arthur stood. Ava, I'd like to talk to you about the future of this family and this company. After dinner, he turned to David. You may stay and listen, or leave. The choice is yours. David chose to stay. But he stayed silent. After dinner, Arthur gave me a tour of his private library, not of business plans or contracts, but of letters, memories, philosophy, things that shaped his empire from the inside out. I built this alone, he said, but I don't want to die alone. I've been searching for someone to trust, not just with money, with legacy. He looked at me with those piercing eyes. And you gave away a $700 scarf without knowing who I was. That's who I trust. Back home that night, David broke down. He apologized. For the dinner, for the pressure, for everything. I've been obsessed with pleasing a father I didn't understand, he said. And I nearly lost the one person who saw what he was too blind to see. He cried, and I held him, because even though his fear had made him cruel, his heart was still trying. 3 months later, we were married. Not at a grand hotel, not with marble and chandeliers, but in my parents' backyard. Under the sun, with the scent of fresh garden roses. My mother cried. My father beamed. And in the front row, dressed in a perfect navy suit, sat Arthur Sterling with my scarf, draped gently across his shoulders like a badge of honor. No bodyguards, no gold watch. Just a father finally at peace. When I said my vows, I looked at David, no longer the boy terrified of failure, but a man who had learned what mattered most. And as we kissed, Arthur whispered from the front row, "You passed every test that counts." Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Secret Affairs Exposed for more powerful real-life stories like this one. See you in the next story.